I watched the same number climb by a factor of 10. Same man, same bulb of onion, same kitchen. The only thing that changed was what sat next to it on the plate. Alone, that onion barely nudged his bloodstream. Paired with one overlooked food, his nitric oxide reading multiplied tenfold within weeks. He was 73. A lifelong believer in raw onion for heart health, a habit passed down from his mother. He'd sliced one into his lunch nearly every day for 2 decades. When I finally checked his nitric oxide levels, they were sitting far below where they should be. All those onions, and his arteries had barely registered a difference. Here's the part almost nobody explains on camera. Onions genuinely contain the raw building blocks your body needs to manufacture nitric oxide, the molecule responsible for opening up your blood vessels and pushing circulation into your fingers, your brain, your heart. But turning those building blocks into usable nitric oxide isn't automatic, and research shows this conversion process slows considerably as we age, sometimes requiring far larger amounts of the same food just to get a fraction of the effect younger bodies produce effortlessly. Eaten solo, most of that potential simply passes through unused. I restructured his onion habit around 6 specific pairings. Nothing else in his diet changed. Within 5 weeks, his readings had surged, his blood pressure eased down, and for the first time in a long while, his hands stayed warm through the afternoon. In this video, you will discover the 6 exact combinations that unlock this hidden potential in raw onion, why the second pairing on this list is non-negotiable, skip it, and the rest lose most of their power, and how to fold this into a habit that takes less time than making your morning coffee. Before we get into it, can you do us a quick favor? Like this video and subscribe to join our healthy community. Also type yes below if you've ever eaten raw onions. Alright, let's get started. Combination number 6. Raw onions soaked in apple cider vinegar. This one sounds like something your grandmother would insist on, and it turns out she may have been onto something real. Slice a raw onion, drop it into apple cider vinegar for 15 to 20 minutes before eating, and you're not just softening the bite, you're changing the chemistry of what reaches your bloodstream. Quercetin, the flavonoid packed into onions, is notoriously unstable once it hits stomach acid. Some of it breaks down before your body ever gets the chance to absorb it and put it to work. Soaking the onion in vinegar first gives the quercetin a head start in an acidic environment it's already somewhat adapted to, which may help more of it survive the trip through digestion intact, though researchers are still mapping out exactly how much of a difference this makes at the molecular level. The vinegar itself isn't just a delivery vehicle. A 2022 dose-response meta-analysis found that every 30 milliliters of vinegar consumed daily was linked to roughly a 3 millimeters mercury drop in systolic blood pressure, and a broader 2026 umbrella review of meta-analyses confirmed vinegar's blood pressure-lowering effect on systolic readings specifically, even if the effect on diastolic pressure was less consistent. A drop in blood pressure like that is often a signal that your blood vessels are relaxing more easily, which is exactly what healthy nitric oxide activity looks like. Put the two together, and you get 2 separate cardiovascular mechanisms working on the same plate: onion compounds feeding the raw material, and vinegar nudging your vessels toward relaxation. Here's how to build it. Reach for a red onion specifically. Multiple food science analyses confirm red onions carry meaningfully more quercetin than white onions, sometimes several times more. Slice it thin, submerge the rings fully in raw, unfiltered apple cider vinegar, and let them sit at room temperature for 15 to 20 minutes. Skip the fridge during this step. Cold slows down how the vinegar interacts with the onion's cell walls. Journals. Eat the rings as a side, plain or with a touch of olive oil and salt if the sharpness is too much. Keep them raw. Heat degrades quercetin, and multiple studies confirm cooked onions lose a substantial share of their quercetin content compared to raw ones. If you exercise, eating this combination around 30 minutes beforehand may give your circulation a head start right when your muscles need it most. Now let's move to a combination that takes this even further. Combination number 5. Raw onions mixed with raw honey. Onions and honey have shown up together in home remedies across cultures for generations, long before anyone understood why. Modern research is starting to explain what those traditions may have stumbled onto by trial and error. Raw, unheated honey contains hydrogen peroxide, flavonoids, and phenolic compounds that plain table sugar simply doesn't have. Human research on honey and nitric oxide is still limited, but at least one clinical study found that drinking a honey solution produced a measurable, if modest, rise in nitrite, a stable marker of nitric oxide activity across saliva, plasma, and urine samples. Separately, laboratory and animal research has linked honey's flavonoid compounds, including chrysin, to reduced inflammatory nitric oxide synthase activity and to blood vessel relaxation, pointing to a broader cardioprotective role when honey is combined with other plant compounds. Pair that with the quercetin already present in raw onion, and you're stacking two different natural compounds that both interact with your vascular signaling. Onion offering the nitrate-adjacent precursors, honey contributing antioxidant and anti-inflammatory support that helps your blood vessels use them more efficiently. There's one detail that changes everything here. It has to be raw honey. Pasteurization involves heating honey to temperatures that break down hydrogen peroxide and destroy much of its delicate flavonoid content. Heat-processed, store-bought honey retains the sugar and the sweetness, but a meaningful share of the bioactive compounds researchers are actually studying simply doesn't survive that heating process. Here's how to prepare it. Finely dice 2 to 3 tablespoons of raw red onion and stir it into 1 tablespoon of raw, unfiltered honey. Let the mixture rest for about 10 minutes. This gives the honey's natural enzymes time to start breaking down the onion's cell walls, releasing more of its compounds than chewing alone would. Eat it straight off the spoon, or spread it over a slice of whole grain toast if the flavor feels too intense on its own. Morning is a reasonable time to take this. Nitric oxide-related markers appear to rise as your body naturally works to buffer the blood pressure surge that happens shortly after waking. So giving your body these precursors early in the day lines up with when your vascular system is already working hardest. Aim for 3 to 4 times a week for a habit that builds cumulative benefit rather than a one-time effect. The next combination brings in a completely different mechanism. Combination number 4, raw onions, drizzled with extra virgin olive oil. This is where the chemistry gets genuinely interesting. Extra virgin olive oil isn't just a flavor booster here. It contains hydroxytyrosol, one of the most studied polyphenols in the entire olive oil research literature, and multiple human and cell studies link it directly to nitric oxide activity in your blood vessels. Several independent studies have found that hydroxytyrosol boosts eNOS, the enzyme your endothelium uses to manufacture nitric oxide, through pathways involving ACT activation and SIRT1-mediated eNOS phosphorylation, with measurable increases in nitric oxide production in vascular cells. One study even found hydroxytyrosol stimulated new blood vessel formation in endothelial cells, partly through this same eNOS pathway. It's worth being honest that the research isn't unanimous. At least one earlier cell study found no significant effect on eNOS activity under non-inflammatory conditions. Science on this compound is still being refined, but the weight of more recent evidence leans toward a real, biologically active effect. Here's where onion and olive oil genuinely reinforce each other. And this part is on much firmer ground. Quercetin, the primary active compound in onions, is fat-soluble. A controlled crossover study found that when people consumed quercetin with a high-fat meal, their peak plasma quercetin concentration rose by 45%, compared to just 12% with a low-fat meal. A separate study found dietary fat improved quercetin bioavailability by up to 38%, likely by helping it dissolve into the micelles your gut needs to absorb it. In plain terms, eating raw onion without any fat means you're leaving a real portion of its quercetin unabsorbed, and olive oil directly fixes that. For preparation, the type of olive oil matters. Look for one labeled extra virgin, and ideally, cold-pressed, since heavy refining and heat processing strip away polyphenols that unrefined oils retain. A genuinely good extra virgin olive oil often has a peppery, slightly bitter finish at the back of your throat, a sensory cue tied to its polyphenol content, including oleocanthal. Slice 1 medium red onion into thin strips, drizzle over 2 tablespoons of high-quality extra virgin olive oil, add a pinch of sea salt, and toss. Let it rest for about 5 minutes so the oil can start working into the onion's cut surfaces. Eat it as a simple side, or pile it onto grilled fish, avocado toast, or a grain bowl. Between the fat-driven boost in quercetin absorption and hydroxytyrosol's own vascular signaling, this combination does real double duty for your circulation. The next one on this list works through an entirely different mechanism. Combination number 3. Raw onions combined with fresh spinach. Spinach is one of the most nitrate-dense vegetables you can eat, and pairing it with raw onion means you're activating two genuinely separate nitric oxide systems in your body at once, rather than leaning on just one. Your body actually makes nitric oxide through two distinct routes. The first is the eNOS pathway, where enzymes lining your blood vessels convert the amino acid L-arginine into nitric oxide. This is the pathway that onion's quercetin content supports. The second is the nitrite-nitrite-nitric oxide pathway. Bacteria on your tongue convert dietary nitrate from foods like spinach into nitrite, which your stomach and bloodstream then convert further into nitric oxide. These two systems don't compete for the same raw materials, which is exactly why combining a nitrate-rich vegetable with a quercetin-rich one makes biological sense rather than just being a nice-sounding pairing. There's a critical detail that determines whether this combination actually works: vitamin C. When dietary nitrite converts inside your stomach, it can go one of two ways: toward beneficial nitric oxide or toward nitrosamines, compounds linked to health risks in excess. Vitamin C has been studied for decades as an effective blocker of that second pathway. It reacts preferentially with nitrite, helping push the chemistry toward nitric oxide formation while simultaneously interfering with nitrosamine formation. This is precisely why a squeeze of lemon juice isn't just a flavor choice in this recipe, it's doing real biochemical work. The other non-negotiable detail is keeping the spinach raw or barely wilted. Research on cooking methods shows boiling leaches a substantial share of spinach's nitrate content directly into the cooking water. In some studies, more than half is lost once you discard that water, while steaming preserves nitrate levels far better since the vegetable never sits submerged in liquid. Raw spinach simply retains more of what you're trying to get out of it. For preparation, toss 2 generous handfuls of fresh baby spinach, roughly 80 to 100 grams, with half a red onion sliced into thin half-moons. Add a squeeze of fresh lemon juice and a drizzle of extra virgin olive oil, which, as covered in combination number 4, brings its own nitric oxide supporting compounds to the plate. Eat this roughly 1 to 2 hours before exercise or any cardiovascular activity, which gives the bacteria on your tongue enough time to begin converting the nitrate. Now let's move into the combinations that really shift the needle. Combination number 2, raw onions crushed with fresh garlic. Garlic and onion are botanical cousins, both allium plants, and eating them raw together triggers overlapping but distinct chemistry that most people never combine on purpose. The moment you crush, chop, or bite into a garlic clove, an enzyme called allinase gets exposed to a compound called allin, and the two react to form allicin, the pungent, sulfur-rich compound responsible for garlic's smell and much of its biological activity. This reaction is actually very fast at the molecular level. Research measuring allicin formation found it's essentially complete within seconds to a few minutes of crushing, once allinase and allinase come into contact. Where timing genuinely matters is heat. Allinase is destroyed by cooking almost immediately, so if you crush garlic and throw it straight into a hot pan, you lose most of the chance for allicin to ever form. That's the real reason behind the popular advice to let crushed garlic rest a few minutes at room temperature before it meets any heat. It protects the enzyme's working window, not because allicin itself is slow to form. Allicin and its breakdown products have been studied for cardiovascular effects, including supporting hydrogen sulfide signaling in blood vessels, a separate gaseous molecule that works alongside nitric oxide in relaxing artery walls. Onions, quercetin, and garlic sulfur compounds don't compete for the same biological machinery. They act through different entry points, which is exactly why pairing them raw is more interesting than doubling up on either one alone. Here's how to get it right. Crush 2 to 3 fresh garlic cloves firmly with the flat side of a knife or a garlic press and let them sit uncovered at room temperature for about 5 to 10 minutes before combining with anything hot or eating them directly. This protects the enzymatic conversion rather than rushing it. Meanwhile, slice half a red onion thin, Combine the two once the resting time is up. Mix them into a simple salsa with diced tomato and a squeeze of lime, or spoon them over avocado toast or a salad. Pairing this combination with a small amount of healthy fat, like the olive oil from combination number 4, can help your body absorb the fat-soluble compounds from both foods more efficiently. And now, the combination that brings everything else on this list together. Combination number 1, raw onions paired with raw beetroot. Everything on this list has been building toward this moment, and there's a reason it's saved for last. This is the pairing that produced the dramatic nitric oxide jump we opened this video with, and once you see the mechanism, you'll understand why nothing else comes close. Beetroot is one of the most nitrate-dense foods in the average grocery store, and dietary nitrate is the raw fuel for the second nitric oxide pathway we talked about earlier, the one that runs through your tongue bacteria and stomach rather than your blood vessel walls. Clinical research on dietary nitrate consistently shows plasma nitrite rising substantially after a single dose, with one controlled study documenting close to a 3-fold increase in plasma nitrite following dietary nitrate intake. That alone makes beetroot a serious nitric oxide contributor on its own. Here's where onion earns its place at the top of this list. Quercetin, onion's signature compound, has been repeatedly shown in enzyme studies to inhibit xanthine oxidase, an enzyme that, left unchecked, generates superoxide radicals that actively destroy nitric oxide before your body can use it. Multiple independent studies confirm quercetin reduces both the enzyme's activity and the superoxide it produces, in some experiments cutting the reaction rate by more than half at physiologically relevant concentrations. In plain terms, beetroot floods your system with nitrate, and onion clears out the enzyme that would otherwise sabotage a chunk of what that nitrate becomes. One food supplies fuel, the other removes the brake. It's worth being straight with you here. Not every beetroot study shows blood pressure benefits. One trial in already treated hypertensive patients found a week of beetroot juice raised nitrate and nitrite markers dramatically, but didn't move blood pressure further. The takeaway isn't that beetroot is magic for everyone, but that the nitrate quercetin mechanism itself is real and well documented, even if individual results vary. For preparation, finely grate 1 small to medium raw beetroot, about 100 to 120 grams. Grating ruptures more cell walls than slicing, releasing more nitrate into the mix. Combine it with half a finely diced red onion, a squeeze of lemon juice for the vitamin C protection covered earlier, and a tablespoon of extra virgin olive oil to help absorb the fat-soluble quercetin. Let it rest for 5 minutes before eating. Timing matters more here than anywhere else on this list. Multiple studies converge on the same window. Plasma nitrite from dietary nitrate peaks roughly 2 to 3 hours after consumption. Eating this combination 2 to 3 hours before exercise or any physically demanding activity lines up precisely with that peak, giving your circulation the most support exactly when it's working hardest. So there you have it, 6 science-backed pairings that turn plain raw onion into something far more effective for your circulation. Onion was never meant to be eaten alone if nitric oxide is the goal. Each combination on this list protects a different compound, activates a different pathway, or removes a different roadblock, from apple cider vinegar's quercetin protection all the way to beetroot's nitrate synergy at number 1. Consistency matters more than any single meal. These pairings work as daily habits, not quick fixes, compounding over weeks into real, measurable changes in your blood pressure, your circulation, and how your body feels day to day. Pick whichever combination fits easiest into your current routine and build from there. If this video gave you something worth trying, hit subscribe so you don't miss what we cover next, and tap that notification bell so you're first in line for our next science-backed video. Drop a comment telling us which combination you're starting with first. I read every one. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.